Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Eric here from Me and Them Guns. Last week was a disappointing week for the 2A, and when it comes to short barrel rifle suppressors and all other devices. That's not what we're going to talk about today. If you watched the last couple weeks of my video, I've been after Everytown and Moms Demand Action for their misleading America and the facts and the truth. This week's going to be no different. Stay tuned. So I'm on Everytown's website, and they're opposing H.R. 38 vigorously. And I made a Facebook post, and I'll put it up here, and we'll just kind of break it down. And we'll just kind of go through the lies line by line. So I tagged in a Facebook post, and it's Everytown's letter that you're to copy and paste and send off to your congressman and senator. So it says, "Dear lawmaker, I'm your constituent, and I'm urging you to oppose the Constitutional Concealed Carry Act, Reciprocity Act, H.R. 38 and S. 65. States have long had the power to decide who is too dangerous to carry a concealed weapon in public, and where concealed firearms can be carried. These state laws help promote responsible gun ownership, protect public safety, and provide law enforcement with the tools to enforce the state gun laws." So in that reciprocity law, if you read this statement here from Everytown, they're basically saying your reciprocity bill makes us accept the person that we may not accept otherwise, and they get to follow their rule. You get to have a weapon and can do whatever they want. You undermine us, which is not true, because one of the provisions from this was the bill's language adheres to local laws. Individuals carrying under this mandate would generally be subject to the same conditions as the state residents they're visiting. So there's lie number one, or misleading number one. Limitations to concealed carry that apply to residents of the state they are visiting. H.R. 38 and S. 65 would create a federal mandate that would override our state gun laws. So I read you the statement, the language of the bill. It does not override that state's gun laws. In fact, it makes that person visiting that state follow their state's gun laws. So, for example, my Taurus G3 with 12 rounds of capacity would not be legal in California. And obviously, my Taurus G3 that will accept Taurus G2 mags, 17 rounders, would still not be legal in California. Their limitation is 10. So I'd have to contact Taurus and buy 10-round magazines to be compliant in California, Washington, and most likely Oregon. All right, back to it. We're back to create a mandate that would override our state gun laws by forcing every state to recognize every other state's concealed carry standards. Now let me bring you to point number 2 on that. When you drive into California from out of state, or you drive into Oregon from out of state, or you drive into Washington from out of state, the speed limit in Idaho on the highway or on the interstate is 75 it's 80 miles an hour. Excuse me. When we get to the Oregon border, there's a speed sign that says 65. Just because we're from Idaho doesn't mean we get to ignore Oregon's speed limit sign and do 80. We still have to abide by the state and local laws with our driver's license. It's no different than the Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act, including those with weak or no standards at all. This legislation would make it easy for people with dangerous histories, like those convicted of violent crimes, domestic abusers, and stalkers. Here's our third lie. So in 1968 the Gun Control Act, banning the possession of firearms by individuals convicted of, including misdemeanor crimes of domestic violence, to carry concealed and loaded gun in public in states that wouldn't otherwise let them. So as you can see, guys, this misleading rhetoric from Everytown is just that. It is very misleading. They would have you believe that because the federal mandate says you have to accept everybody's gun laws doesn't mean that they can't keep their own gun laws. The legislation, H.R. 38, mandates that they get to have to follow the state they're in's laws. Just like your driver's license. You have to follow speeding and rules of the road. And then they say, well, we let states with weaker... That's a federal law. Federal law, we already know, supersedes state law. So if a misdemeanor domestic abuser or stalker is prohibited from having a gun in Idaho, then they're prohibited from having a gun in Oregon. This legislation would put our communities in greater risk of gun crime and violence, endangering law enforcement and making it more difficult to stop the flow of illegal guns. We already lose 125 people every single day. I fact-checked that. That is true. Guns do kill 125 people every day. In fact, the time of this video is actually up to 133 when I looked it up. What Everytown is misleading you is 75 of those 125 people are suicides by gun. The actual homicide rate by gun is 80% of, homicides are committed with a gun. So 49 of that 125 are actual. In 2023, motor vehicle accidents accounted for 112 people dying every day. You really think guns is our issue? To our gun crisis, as on my elected official, I'm counting on you to prevent more senseless violence. Please oppose a constitutional Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act, H.R. 38 S65. Do these people think that Congress would not see the misleading lies in this letter? They didn't write that letter for Congress. They wrote that for the people that support Everytown and Moms Demand Action. Congress, they know the language of their bill. They know exactly what it includes. Just another way of manipulating you and brainwashing non-gun owning people. We're gun nuts, basically, and we don't know what we're talking about. Well, we can cherry pick data, too. My next favorite one was you looked at the sexual assault rates. They were 112 in the UK, 147 in Australia, and 38. This is per 100,000 in the United States. So I asked Google's AI, I said, could you theoretically conclude that if the United Kingdom and Australia allowed citizens to conceal carry, would you see a lower rate of sexual assaults? And I posted that on Facebook too. The answer was yes. You theoretically could come to that conclusion that carrying concealed weapons for protection could prevent some of these sexual assaults in the UK and Australia. It was kind of interesting. It's on Facebook. I'll put it up on the screen so you guys can see it. Guys, as usual, I hope you have a blessed week. If you like the content, like and share. And remember, we love you. Peace out.